made the world laugh, yet inside he was fighting a war no one could see. When the news broke on August 11, 2014, the world stopped. Robin Williams, our genie, our teacher, our childhood hero, was gone. The man who had given light to millions had chosen to leave his own world of shadows behind. But the truth of what pushed him there was far more tragic than anyone knew. For years, Hollywood painted him as the jester of joy, the man who could turn any pain into comedy, who could make even the darkest moments sparkle with laughter. But behind the improvisations, behind those quicksilver smiles, there was a man slowly losing control of his own mind. Friends saw it. Family felt it. Yet no one truly understood what was happening until it was too late. It wasn't simply depression, as headlines claimed. It wasn't just exhaustion or the fading light of fame. What Robin Williams faced was something silent, invisible, and cruel. A disease that stole his brilliance. Thought by thought, memory by memory, emotion by emotion. In the days after his death, whispers emerged. Medical reports, hidden journals, and quiet confessions from those closest to him began to reveal a horrifying truth, one that changed the way we understood his final years. What really happened to Robin Williams wasn't just a story of sadness. It was a story of a mind betrayed by its own biology. And once you know what truly haunted him, you'll never see that radiant smile the same way again. Long before the tragedy that shook Hollywood, Robin Williams was the heartbeat of laughter itself. Born in Chicago in 1951, he grew up as an only child in a house that felt both comfortable and lonely. His father was a stern executive. His mother, a bright spirit who taught him how humor could fill silence. Young Robin learned early that laughter could be more than entertainment, it could be armor. When he performed, the world disappeared. At Juilliard, he was a student of discipline and genius, studying alongside Christopher Reeve. Even then, his teachers saw something rare, a mind that moved faster than anyone could follow. He could shapeshift into dozens of voices in a heartbeat, creating entire worlds out of thin air. But what they didn't see was how quickly that same mind could spiral inward, overwhelmed by the noise of its own brilliance. The 1970s and 1980s were his era of ascent. From Mork and Mindy to Good Morning Vietnam, he became a symbol of chaos and warmth, the comic with the soul of a poet. He didn't just make people laugh, he lifted them. On talk shows, his energy felt electric, unstoppable. But behind the cameras, Robin's humor often blurred with desperation. He once said, "Comedy is acting out optimism." What he didn't say was how exhausting it was to keep doing so when the optimism wasn't real. By the 1990s, he had become more than a comedian, he was an actor of heartbreaking depth. Dead Poets Society, Good Will Hunting, Patch Adams, each performance was a cry disguised as inspiration. He understood loneliness and loss too well. He poured them into his characters because, deep down, he was always searching for a way to make sense of his own. Hollywood adored him, but fame is a fragile cure. Between filming schedules, charity events, and the pressure to always be on, Robin began to unravel quietly. There were moments of addiction, of depression, of long nights alone. He sought help, went to rehab, found love again, and kept fighting. But beneath the recovery, something new was emerging, something darker, something medical. His friends noticed subtle changes first. His speech slowed, his focus drifted, and his boundless energy began to fade. The man who could once perform 10 thoughts at once now struggled to finish a sentence. Yet he kept smiling. He kept performing. Because that's what Robin Williams did. He made others feel okay, even when he wasn't. What no one knew then was that his body was beginning to betray him. The disease that would soon take everything. His creativity, his stability, his sense of self was already spreading in silence. This wasn't just the story of a beloved comedian. It was the beginning of a hidden battle between a man's heart and his own mind, a battle that would lead to one of the most misunderstood tragedies in Hollywood history. The story of Robin Williams' rise is one of brilliance wrapped in chaos, a meteoric ascent that burned too brightly for the fragile world beneath it. In the late 1970s, he burst onto television with Mork and Mindy, playing an alien who tried to understand human behavior. In truth, Robin was that alien, an outsider who watched the world with fascination and confusion. The show made him a phenomenon overnight. His unpredictable humor, his lightning-fast mind, his tenderness. They were unlike anything audiences had ever seen. Fame found him, and it never let go. He leapt from clubs to cinema screens, conquering both with a rawness that felt divine. His stand-up routines weren't rehearsed acts. They were spiritual outbursts, improvisational storms that left crowds breathless. But in the quiet after those storms, Robin often found himself alone. He once described performing as being loved for a moment, then forgotten in the silence after. That silence terrified him. Cocaine became his companion, the drug of the 1980s. Fast, reckless, seductive. He used it to fill the void, to keep the energy alive when the laughter stopped. But after the overdose death of his friend John Belushi in 1982, something inside him broke. Belushi's final night had included Robin's visit, a haunting coincidence that forced him to confront his own mortality. That was the first time he tried to quit. Then came Good Morning Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, and Mrs. Doubtfire. Each film wasn't just a success, it was a message. Beneath the comedy was pain, and audiences could feel it. They didn't just laugh with Robin. They cried with him. He wasn't acting. He was revealing pieces of himself. Every character he played carried echoes of the same wound. The desperate need to connect, to belong, to be enough. In Good Will Hunting, his portrayal of Sean Maguire, the grieving therapist, won him an Oscar. When he accepted it, he looked genuinely stunned, as if part of him still didn't believe he deserved to be recognized for his pain. Behind the scenes, though, the applause didn't heal the emptiness. The laughter of millions couldn't quiet the private fears of fading relevance, aging, or being forgotten. In the 2000s, Robin began to slow down. He remarried, focused on family, and sought peace. Yet, the shadows never left. The industry he had once ruled grew younger, faster, and less forgiving. Studios wanted new stars, new names. Robin was still loved, but not needed in the way he once was. That realization crushed him more than anyone knew. And then, in his final years, something strange began to happen. His voice trembled. His hands shook. He forgot lines. He grew anxious, paranoid, and restless. He told his wife he felt as if his brain was melting. He feared it was Parkinson's disease, the diagnosis he would receive just months before his death. But the truth was far more insidious. Unbeknownst to everyone, Robin Williams was already being consumed by something deeper than depression or addiction. A rare and devastating neurological disease that would rewrite every memory, every smile, every spark of the man we once knew. The world still saw him as the eternal clown. But behind the mask, Robin was slipping away, piece by piece, as the real monster quietly took over. After his death, the headlines screamed suicide and depression. But what they didn't know, what even Robin himself didn't know, was that he was fighting an invisible killer. It wasn't despair that took his life. It was a disease so cruel, it stole his very sense of self before anyone could name it. Months after his passing, doctors conducted an autopsy that revealed something shocking. Robin Williams had been suffering from Lewy body dementia, a rare and aggressive brain disease often mistaken for Parkinson's or depression. His wife, Susan Schneider Williams, later called it the terrorist inside my husband's brain. Lewy body dementia attacks the mind in silence. It twists perception, breeds paranoia, causes terrifying hallucinations, and dismantles the ability to think clearly. For Robin, it meant living in a waking nightmare where reality and illusion blurred. He was aware enough to know something was wrong, but powerless to explain it. One day he'd forget a line. Another day he'd forget where he was. He became trapped inside a body and mind that betrayed him daily. Friends noticed how frightened he had become. He told them he felt off, that something inside was changing. He wasn't himself anymore. He knew it, but he didn't know why. The man who once lit up rooms with 1,000 voices now struggled to hold one thought. His wife described those last months as a slow-motion loss. He fought desperately to stay alive, to keep filming, to keep pretending he was okay. He took smaller roles, tried medication, even changed his diet, but nothing helped. The disease advanced too fast. In private, he began to lose faith, not in life but in his ability to be Robin Williams anymore. The world will never know the depth of that pain. Imagine being aware of your own unraveling. Imagine realizing that the thing that made you special, your mind, is slipping away. Robin once said that his fear wasn't death, but becoming dull. That fear came true in the cruelest way possible. After his passing, Susan became his voice. In interviews, she revealed the truth Hollywood never told. It was not depression that killed Robin. It was Lewy body dementia. Depression was just one of 50 symptoms. Her words changed everything. What the world had called a tragic suicide became something far deeper. Fight against a disease no one had understood. The revelation shocked fans and doctors alike. Neurologists later called his case one of the worst ever seen. His brain was ravaged, his neurotransmitters in chaos. Yet, somehow until the very end, Robin hid it behind kindness, humor, and love. He made people laugh when he could barely hold on to himself. When his autopsy report became public, it didn't just explain his death, it redefined it. Suddenly, the laughter, the tears, the strange behavior all made sense. He wasn't giving up. He was being taken. And maybe that's the cruelest truth of all. The world lost Robin Williams not because he stopped fighting, but because his mind left before his heart did. There are stories in Hollywood that linger, not because of their glamour, but because of their unbearable humanity. Robin Williams' story is one of them. It forces us to question how well we truly see the people who make us happy. How many times do we mistake laughter for peace? How often do we confuse energy for joy? At Legends and Secrets, we don't see Robin's death as a moment of weakness, but as the final chapter of a life defined by extraordinary courage. He faced the unimaginable with a heart still willing to make others smile. Even as his mind betrayed him, he tried to protect his loved ones from his pain. There's a quiet heroism in that one the headlines never captured. Hollywood has always thrived on masks. The smiling actor, the shining star, the untouchable icon. all built upon the illusion of perfection. But Robin's story tears through that illusion. It shows us the unbearable truth. Even the brightest souls can be consumed by darkness that fame cannot fix. His tragedy wasn't born of failure. It was born of love. The love he gave so freely to others while leaving so little for himself. After his passing, tributes poured in from around the world. Comedians, actors, and even presidents spoke of his warmth, his generosity, his genius. But beneath the sorrow, there was guilt. A collective realization that we had laughed with him, yet never truly listened to him. That we adored the light, but ignored the flickering flame beneath it. In truth, Robin Williams was never just an entertainer. He was a mirror. He showed us how fragile the human spirit can be, and how even the act of making others happy can sometimes be a desperate way to stay alive. Lewy body dementia stole his clarity, but it didn't erase his legacy. Today, his story helps thousands recognize the silent suffering of others. His wife's advocacy transformed grief into awareness, saving lives through understanding. And maybe that's where the meaning lies, not in how he died, but in how he lived. In the way he could turn his pain into laughter, his fear into compassion, his despair into art. Robin Williams gave the world everything he had. And in doing so, he reminded us of something sacred, the most beautiful. Souls are often the most broken. So as we remember him, we should ask ourselves, not why did he go, but how can we make sure no one else feels alone like he did? Sometimes it's hard to believe he's really gone. You watch Dead Poets Society, and for a moment you can almost hear his voice again, soft, encouraging, eternal. You watch Mrs. Doubtfire, and you find yourself smiling through tears, as if the disguise could somehow hide his pain once more. Robin Williams isn't just a memory. He's a feeling, that spark of warmth in the middle of a dark day, that sudden laugh when you least expect it. He lives in the small moments, in a stranger's kindness, in the courage to speak when silence feels easier, in the reminder that even broken hearts can give love to the world. It's said that great comedians don't just tell jokes, they heal people. And Robin did exactly that. He reached into the loneliness of millions and told us, "You're not alone." But in the end, perhaps he was the one who needed to hear those words most of all. The world remembers the characters he played, the genie, the teacher, the doctor, the father, but the truest role he ever embodied was himself. A man who gave everything he had to light up others, even when his own light was fading. There's a line from Good Will Hunting that feels like it was written for him. You'll have bad times, but it'll always wake you up to the good stuff you weren't paying attention to. And maybe that's what Robin Williams left us. A lesson to cherish the laughter, but also to look deeper, to see the human being behind it. Because somewhere, in another place, maybe he's still making someone laugh. Not as a mask, but as the free, unburdened soul he always wanted to be. Some stories are never revealed. But now you know.